Hi, welcome to another episode of Unboxing Entrepreneurship with Pallavi. Becoming an entrepreneur is hard enough, but then you may want to grow your business and scale it to become a small business. What is required for that, and what kind of challenges would you face? I'm talking to Raashid Navlakhi, who's the founder of Jigsawthinking, and we are going to discuss what it takes to grow into a small business. Let's get right into it. Hi, Rashid. Welcome to Unboxing Entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to have this conversation with you, Pallavi.
Yeah, we've been trying to schedule it for a while. I'm glad we were able to have the conversation today. And the topic that we're going to talk about is interesting for the viewers, but it's also interesting for me because I've kind of gone through the same journey. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about what other entrepreneurs go through. But before we get into that, perhaps you'd give us an introduction about yourself and Jigsaw.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try and keep it as short as possible so I don't bore you too much. But my name is Raashid Navlakhi. I guess by vocation, I'm a business coach. That's my expertise. That's my sweet spot. I've been doing that for quite a while now. But about 4 years ago, I challenged myself to not just be an independent business coach, but to build a business with a very specific mission. And that's when Jigsaw Thinking was born. The mission for Jigsaw Thinking is to try and bolster the creative economy of India. And the way we see ourselves doing that is helping the amazing, talented, passionate creatives that the country has produced and helping them transition into going from creatives to becoming creative entrepreneurs. Because we don't believe the only way for India to progress is by constantly becoming better job seekers. We want to help creatives be self-employed and then get to a stage where slowly but surely they're not just self-employed, but they start creating jobs as well. And so over the past 4 years, we've worked with over 1,000 entrepreneurs, and the focus all of the time has been, can we help entrepreneurs build a thriving creative business? We feel our sweet spot is helping them with the business aspects of the journey, the uncertainty, the mindsets an entrepreneur needs to build, the strategies for sales, marketing, things like that. We leave them to do their craft, and we don't mess with that because they're far better at it than we are. But that's basically what the journey we've been on over the last 4 years, and we're quite excited. It's been gathering momentum over the past 4 years, and we feel we're at the cusp of something pretty amazing. Hopefully, over the next couple of years, we'll create some real impact in India.
Awesome. So, becoming an entrepreneur is challenging enough. And I think that people who don't come from a business background or who've never been an entrepreneur before, you're right that they know their craft really well, whatever it is their product is or their services, they know that the best. But then there's so many other things about entrepreneurship that no one has ever taught them, right? Finances, team building, even things like negotiation, which was one of the things that, I attended one of your sessions, even stuff like that. It's so much learning and so much knowledge that you need to have to be good at running a business, that I think that companies like you or coaches like you are really required, because then you can kind of plug those gaps of all these entrepreneurs. So I think what you're doing is pretty great. Having said that, I do have a bit of a question. Becoming an entrepreneur is very difficult. And your challenge is to then get them to go from solopreneur to launching a business. Now, that's the next big step, and it involves a lot of different things. So first of all, how will you motivate someone to really do that? Why should they do it? Why can't they just be a solopreneur?
So firstly, there's nothing wrong with being a solo entrepreneur, building a lifestyle business for yourself. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So actually, our model is never to push people or tell them that what they're doing is not enough and everybody should have a goal of building their entrepreneurial career, turning it into a small business and a big business and $1 million business. We don't actually do this at all. So
Hmm.
the way we think about it is that if they're getting enough of a nudge, if they're getting
Hmm.
challenged, if we're asking them the right questions, if they're in an environment with other people who are moving fast and falling down and taking risks and supporting each other, then the
Hmm.
answer of what they are looking for will emerge over time. So,
Hmm.
what happens in most scenarios, at least when we work with our entrepreneurs, is that somebody will come in as a solo entrepreneur who's very good
Hmm.
at their craft. Let's say it's been 6 months since they've started. They've
Hmm.
realized, wait a minute, there's something here. We've been earning some reasonably good pocket money doing this,
Hmm.
but things are getting a bit chaotic now. But there's something
Hmm.
serious over here. We want to take a
Hmm.
serious next step, make sure we're
Hmm.
getting consistent income. So they come to
Hmm.
us with that. That's actually their first challenge. If I had to
Right.
put it into one phrase, the challenge
Hmm.
most solo entrepreneurs come to us with is, how do I get off the income roller coaster? Right.
Hmm.
I've started getting clients. I have proof points, but it's a little bit
Hmm.
up and down. So the
Hmm.
first challenge and the first milestone for them is, I want to be off the income roller coaster. I want to
Yeah.
move my income up, and I want to make sure it's consistent at a higher
Hmm.
level. So
Hmm.
that's the first challenge we help them solve. And what we've noticed is, as people solve a challenge and grow,
Hmm.
there are different points in their journey when they need to make a decision on, wait a minute, am I happy where I am? Do I want to sustain
Hmm.
it? And that's absolutely
Hmm.
fine. Or maybe
Hmm.
they're the type of person at that stage in their life going, wait a minute, I can push and I can try and do something a little bit beyond what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
So we let the answers emerge from them by just asking the right questions at the right time. I would say personally, I feel all entrepreneurs have their own superpowers. That's probably mine, being able to ask the right question at the right time. And so that gets them thinking in a particular direction. And then for those of them who want to seek out the next adventure,
Yeah.
then they think about, okay, I've been doing this for a little bit. I've got that consistent income. Now, what would it
Hmm.
look like if I went from just me to building a small business? And then that's the next adventure we support them on and guide them on and hold them accountable on, etc. So one of the ways, I remember one of our entrepreneurs, um, he came up with a really cool analogy of what we do, which I thought fit really well. Uh, he said that his journey with Jigsaw has been, he was basically going on a trek, and
Hmm.
a trek with a bunch of people and a guide is more fun and you know what you're doing. But
Hmm.
then we get to the first camp,
Hmm.
and then people can decide whether they want to rest at that camp for a while, or
Hmm.
try and scale the highest peak, or go
Hmm.
on a mini adventure, which is not that hard. And so
Hmm.
he just thought of it as, okay, I've got to one stage. Now I can
Hmm.
choose. I can
Hmm.
relax, I can sustain, or I can go on one adventure, or I can choose the tougher adventure. And it's up to the entrepreneur really to decide, where they want to go. In fact, that's one of the big frustrations I have with the ecosystem right now. And I promise I will stop ranting after this final point. Um,
Hmm.
my frustration is that what we see in the newspapers, media, TV is this one definition of what an entrepreneurship journey should look like, right?
Correct.
Your journey should be that you come up with a great idea, you work 20 hours a day. In a
Hmm.
year's time, you should go out and build a great presentation and go get funding. And
Hmm.
then 2 years later, you should be at 10x growth, and your name should
Hmm.
be in the newspaper, and you should be able to go from Series A to Series B. And then you
Hmm.
should be able to go public, or you should be able to sell your shares. I mean, there's this one path of entrepreneurship that everybody is celebrating. And what's
Hmm.
happening in India, apart from this wave, and there's nothing wrong with companies looking to go that way, there's such a
Hmm.
huge wave of creatives coming out, small business owners coming out, and we're not celebrating profitable businesses. We're celebrating
Yeah.
funded businesses. So
Yes.
um, I have a big issue with how things are framed in the media. What we're trying to do at Jigsaw Thinking is create a safe space to go on whatever adventure you want to go. Whatever your
Hmm.
adventure is, you might need some guidance and support. So we're here,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So yeah, at no point do we force them to say, you're only a solo entrepreneur, go build a
Hmm.
small business. It's up to them
Hmm.
when they're ready. We'll always keep that little nudge and that little pushing. And
Hmm.
if they're ready, we'll then realize, okay, they want to be pushed. And if they're not, then we help them sustain their business, right? It's up to each individual to decide which route and which adventure they want to take.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. In my first startup, I was so drowning in operations. And I was so involved in just making the whole thing run, that if you had come to me at that point of time and said, "Oh, have you thought about scale?" or, these are the benefits of what you could do if you had a team, I would not have listened, because for me it was the first time I was, building something, and I really wanted to go on the journey. I wanted to do everything myself and, go through that. After that experience, the second time I built a business, I think I was a little bit more intentional about thinking, okay, at this point I need to hire someone, or at this point I need to set a financial goal for myself, so that a little bit of the path was clearer for me. And I think what you say is right, that if the entrepreneur is not ready, what you give them is not going to be well received, because they have to be ready for the journey. So that is one of the things that they really need to have before they think about scaling. What are the other mindset that you think that they should have after they've passed this initial hurdle of wanting to grow?
So you're asking about the mindsets that are required once they've decided, yes, I want to be a small business owner?
Yes.
Okay. I'm in love with the number 3, so I'm going to try and come up with 3 to keep things simple as well in terms of mindsets. And honestly, I've not prepared, so I'll go with my gut instinct. Number 1 is you have to have the awareness to know that at some point you're going to have to let things go. I think that is number 1. It's insanely hard. I think everybody talks about this all the time. It's not, like I have come up with this new concept that people need to let things go, but I think it's so essential, because if you're not able to let things go, then it is impossible to be a small business owner, because you will continuously be trying to control everything, because you feel, or rightly or wrongly, that you can do a particular job better or faster or cheaper than somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think a subset of that let it go mindset is trusting people and being open to trusting people and backing people, and not always thinking about what if they get it wrong, what if they don't do it well, but sometimes asking the question, but hold on a minute, what if they do get it right? What if they have a perspective I don't have about something? What if they have a skill set that's way beyond mine? What if my way of thinking is holding the business back, but somebody else can come in and think very differently about it? And that requires a lot of humility to think that way. And I think entrepreneurship is this, or at least that phase of the journey is this very weird blend of having a lot of humility that other people can serve you well on the adventure, and at the same time having that little sense of arrogance of, I'm going to figure this out, and this doesn't have to be a solo entrepreneur journey. I can build a business around what I'm doing. And it's a really weird mesh to sort of deal with these 2 mindsets at the same time, because there's a tension there, right? Because you've got to manage both at the same time. So I would say that's the first one for me, being able to let it go. I actually, when I realized I was getting to this phase, I think this was 2 or 3 years ago, to build some social pressure to make sure that I actually did this. And I think it might still be on our Instagram feed. I actually did a little sing-along to the Frozen soundtrack of Let It Go and put it up on Instagram saying, I am going to let things go, because I realized I was trying to control everything and it just wasn't possible. Right. And so I think that's definitely the first one, the ability to let things go. Mindset I would keep in mind when you're making this transition to small business owner is the mindset that you're going to be experimental in what you do. And so I'll just try and explain this maybe first theoretically and through an example if I can. I always find that most entrepreneurs I work with, they have a bias towards one end or the other. Okay, the 2 ends are either let's say they have to come up with their they have to work on their next marketing campaign. Okay, the 2 extremes of entrepreneurs I've seen is, one extreme is someone who will think about it and then think about it some more, and then think about it some more, and then just keep going and just constantly try and outthink problem till they get it perfectly on a piece of paper or an Excel sheet or whatever it might be, right? So they're just constantly thinking. And what happens over there is they move way too slowly, right? So they, even if they do a great job, they're just doing a great job too slowly to have consistent big progress, right? So that's one extreme. The second extreme is, I need to come up with a new marketing campaign. Boom, tomorrow, let's go. Right. And so you take action because you're so scared of not taking action that you just go and sort of take action. And it's really risky because the marketing campaign might work and you might get results, or it might bomb and you might not get any results. Right. And so I've seen entrepreneurs have a bias strongly towards one side or the other. And what I mean by an experimental mindset is, instead of either of these extremes, let's say you've got a marketing campaign coming up. The way I believe is the most effective way to move forward is to think through it really quickly. But think about it only so much as you need to turn it into an experiment. So I would take, if I had to come up with a 1 month, I don't know, campaign across Instagram and LinkedIn in this example, I would immediately try and sketch out and give myself a time limit of, okay, I've got 60 minutes to put this together, the plan together. And then I have to figure out a quick way to experiment with this. And the way I would do it is, I would figure out the 3 people in my network who are the best at social media or at marketing. And I would, whatever I build in those 60 minutes, I would share it with them and tell them to give me really candid feedback. And to me, that's an experiment. It's taking an objective I have and turning it into a really small experiment. I might get feedback back from them. I might make another version, and I might start the first week of the campaign live, but not commit to the month, because I might get data back and then I can readjust. So that's what I mean by an experimental mindset. I think too many entrepreneurs are on one extreme or the other, where they keep thinking or they jump into action. And both of these in the long run don't give you good results, because one is too slow and one is too risky. So you've got to be in the middle, constantly always asking yourself, how do I turn this project into an experiment? I think that's extremely important as well. So that would be the second mindset that I think is really important. And the third mindset, I almost don't think it matters what stage of entrepreneurship you're at, because this could apply from day 0 to your Elon Musk, right? Who's built multiple businesses. Like wherever on the spectrum you are, this, I think, plays a role, which is a mindset to make smart, strategic bets. So last night, actually, I had a few friends who came over. We play poker once every couple of weeks. And it's one of the ways in which this group of friends sort of gets together. We were always interested in the game and we have a good time doing this, right? So they came over to play poker. And I feel like a lot of what I've learned in poker can apply to entrepreneurship. And there's especially this one bit, which is that, you know, even for someone who doesn't understand the game, there's going to be a certain amount of money in the middle. So let's say there's 100 rupees in the middle. And let's say I need to spend 20 rupees to call a bet. Then the way I need to be thinking about it is, do I feel like so 20 out of 100 is 1 out of 5. So the only decision I need to be making is, do I feel like I will win this hand more than 1 out of 5 times? If I think I will win this hand more than 1 out of 5 times, it's a good place to call, knowing that you might lose, right? So even if I lose the bet, it's absolutely fine, because the math tells me to make the bet. And so what I mean by that in an entrepreneurial context is that as a solo entrepreneur, typically you don't have to spend a lot of time or especially money making investments, whether it's hiring people or on a piece of technology or a software or buying a fancy camera to run your business. Whatever it is, you might not need to spend that money. But if you want to build a small business, you are likely to have to make investments. And so it's very hard for a solo entrepreneur who's never made investments to think, wait, I have to spend money now? Everything was profit. You're telling me to like break all my profit and bring it down. But the fact is, if you want to go from being a solo entrepreneur to building a small business, you have to make smart strategic bets, knowing, and this is the most important part, knowing that quite often those bets are not going to come off. But as long as you keep making small, smart, strategic bets, overall, it will give you a return on your money, your investment, your time. And that, I think, is a very tough, out of the three, probably the
Yeah.
toughest mindset shift to make, because it's the only one that is where you have to give something up, knowing that you might not get return. You might have to deal with failure over and over and over again. But I think
Yeah.
without making these strategic bets, it's impossible to build a small business,
Yeah.
or go from small business to big business, or whatever transition you want to make. It's impossible, right? So
Yeah.
I think people have to get better at making these strategic bets and thinking through their investments, because quite often they just think through their investment as, oh my God, so much money. Should I do it? Should I not? Which is a
Yeah.
terrible question. The
Yeah.
question, if somebody says, oh, for 40,000 rupees, I can help you with social media, the question you should be asking is, how quickly can this 40,000 rupees give me a return of 3x to 5x
Yeah.
after the first 3 months of experimentation, right? So can it help me
Mm.
earn a further 1.5, 2 lakhs? If yes, great. You should be going for
Mm.
it. Even if
Mm.
the first two social media vendors are terrible for you and they don't give you returns, you should
Mm.
still keep going after the same thing and making the bet, because the math says it's a good bet, right? So
Yeah.
I think that would be the third mindset that I would focus on if you're looking to make this transition.
Yeah, all great points. And I work with bootstrapped entrepreneurs, and I think that the thing that I tell them most often is that everything that you do has to be iterative. So
Mm.
you can't straight away jump into a really large marketing campaign. In my case, you can't really jump into a really large marketing campaign and expect that it'll give you 1x or 2x results, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to start small, and you have to see the result, and then you kind of invest a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So the main thing I feel is that you have to have that mindset to be decisive, and that decision could be anything. It could be that yes, you're wanting to spend, or it could be that you want to experiment, or you're open to experimentation. But if you're not decisive, then you're kind of just sitting on the fence and thinking, I'm not going to move forward, because you're not
Yeah.
making any decision. And if you're not taking the risk, how will you know what result it's going to give
Yeah.
you? So
I
yeah.
find myself, I think it's an excellent point. I find myself talking to entrepreneurs. So when I have like coaching sessions with them, they often, there'll be questions about, okay, should I hire this team member, but it's a little bit risky, or this intern, or whatever it is, right? And it's not like I'm invalidating their complaints or the fact that it's a risk. Of course, it's a risk. But I always go back to the same thing. And I ask them, was it a risk for you to become an entrepreneur? And of course, the answer is yes. And I
Yeah.
go, well, then, and when you became an entrepreneur, were you fully aware that it's a risky path? Yes. Okay, so then how can you suddenly expect that you'll never take risks within this risky path and
Yeah.
progress? It's just impossible. So
Yeah.
when I ask that question to entrepreneurs, it's the most impactful one, because they realize, wait a minute, I started out on this risky path. Now suddenly I want to play safe. Well, then this is not the journey for you, because playing safe is not going to get you very far as an entrepreneur. There might be
Yeah.
phases, like, I
Yeah.
mean, during the pandemic and stuff, there were
Yeah.
certain businesses that had to play it safe to make sure they got through the pandemic. But
Mm.
the ones that really thrived are the ones that took the risks in the riskiest time, right? And said, okay, let's go for it. And if we fail, we fail. So I
Yeah.
think maybe the underlying mindset to all of this, the three others, decisiveness we talk, the underlying mindset is embracing failure, celebrating failure, being okay with it, preferring to fail fast. If you don't have that, it's very, very hard to grow and scale a business, because you're always going to play from a place of fear. And when you play from a place of fear, you're going to play small and safe. And that is just against growth and scale. So I
Yeah.
think that's really important. That somehow, that boldness that an entrepreneur felt when they started starts to disappear, because suddenly you have something to protect. So in
Yeah.
like footballing terms, you suddenly have a 1 goal lead, and you're like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, now I have to just defend. But that's not what got you the 1 goal lead. You've got to keep sort of pushing, right? So I think that's
Yeah.
perhaps the underlying thing
Right.
beneath all the mindsets we've talked about.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was great conversation, and I feel, I mean, I've seen from what you've said, it's kind of validated a little bit of what I've gone through, and I'm sure that other people who are thinking about scaling will find it very useful as to what they can look forward to, and how they can prepare best for it. So thanks a lot, Raashid, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Real pleasure having this conversation. I'm so glad we could make it happen. And hopefully there was something insightful for the viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and all the best.